Hi, Joe Alton MD here. You know me from some of my medical videos. It's the holiday season, however, and I always try to put together something that isn't a medical lecture, but an actual Christmas story. So I got to writing and came up with the story of the first snowman. Once upon a time, long ago, the world had never seen or heard of a snowman. One day, old St. Nick was taking a leisurely stroll, too leisurely if you ask Mama Claus, around his home. Mama Claus had the difficult job of getting him fat for Christmas while keeping him fit. It wasn't easy. Of course, this story is happening near the North Pole. Not the North Pole, mind you, but the town of North Pole, Alaska. Now, you might think there's only one North Pole, but there's actually a few. St. Nick liked Alaska best because the internet connection was good compared to the other North Poles. And the good citizens of the town valued their privacy. They didn't let on that jolly old Santa Claus was their neighbor. Anyhow, Santa and Mrs. Claus got themselves a nice plot of land at the outskirts of town. They filled it with Santa magic and brought all the elves to work at a brand new state-of-the-art workshop that they built. Why, it even had a fancy shop that served hot chocolate. Before long, the native reindeer, or caribou, were drawn to the place. Only a few, however, had the ability to fly. These seemed to be the ones that were the gassiest, the composition of which seemed to be mostly helium. But where was I? That's right, the snowman. St. Nick was doing his morning exercises, such as it was. His belly bounced and he half-heartedly trotted around the place. While going past the elves' sledding hill, Santa saw some snowballs. It wasn't unusual to see little snowballs roll down the hill, gaining more snow as they reached the bottom. Some get to be a pretty good size. Santa barely noticed these three good-sized snowballs next to each other. But just then, he heard a noise. He looked back to see that the balls were actually shaking. He went to the first snowball, the biggest, so big he couldn't wrap his arms around it. It wasn't making noise, but it rolled back and forth as if it wanted to get someplace. The middle one was, well, middle-sized, and twisted like it was doing some kind of dance. No noise, though. Then he got to the third one, the smallest, maybe the size of a soccer ball, and it was turning back and forth. But wait, it was making noise. Santa knew he had something special here. He picked up the smallest snowball and figured out a way to communicate. He remembered that he had an extra lumps of coal reserved for naughty kids, but he didn't like to give them out at Christmas and had a few left over from a year when so many little boys and girls were especially good. Well, he used the coal to make a pair of eyes and a mouth. It looked like a smiley face. "Why, hello," the newly formed, I guess you can call it a head, said. "Who might you be? And who might I be?" Well, Santa fell over backwards with surprise. As he stood and brushed the snow off himself, he said, "Why, me?" he said to the snowball, now on the ground. "Ho, ho, ho, why, I'm Santa Claus. And who or what you are, I could only guess." Looking up, the animated snowball said, "You seem to be a lot bigger than me, and you can move around. Wish I could." Looking at the two larger snowballs, which were still moving, Santa said, "You know, I might just be able to help you." So he put the talking head on top of the middle snowball. The head looked down and said, "Hey, I can wiggle some." "Now let's put you on this big one," Santa said. And with that, a miracle occurred. The snow being was now almost the size of a man and began to waddle about, slowly at first, but then quicker and quicker, almost like he was dancing. Santa said, "Well, I'll be a jiggly bowl of jelly. I made me a real-life, honest-to-goodness man made out of snow." "A snowman? Is that what I am?" "I can't think of a better name." "And are there others like me?" "I've never seen one. You're one of a kind." "Are you one of a kind? Are there other Santas?" "Well, no other Santas like me, but plenty of other men." The snowman asked, "Can I have a name that's all my own too?" "Well, sure you can. Let's see. How about Mr. Shivers? Or Freezington? Or Snowbie? That one! Snowbie, I like it." "Well, come on, Snowbie. Let's meet the rest of the family." So Santa and Snowbie traveled to the Claus's house, where, as you can imagine, Mrs. Claus almost fainted to see a man made out of 3 large balls of snow who could walk and talk. Mama Claus is a gracious host, though, but she was a little scared of offering hot chocolate to Snowbie. He might melt. What would that do to his insides? Does he have insides? Well, she settled on some cookies and cold milk instead. As you can imagine, for a first meal, it was a big hit with Snowbie, even if he could only open his mouth and have Mrs. Claus feed him. Thought Santa. This fellow's gonna need some arms if he's gonna live in this world. Being a champion whittler, he got out his knife, found some evergreen branches, and set to work making arms. These turned out pretty good, even if one ended in 4 fingers and the other one ended in 3. Snowbie was now pretty much a functioning, well, person. Next, Santa took Snowbie to meet the elves in the workshop. They were all hard at work making toys for all the good boys and girls throughout the earth. Upon seeing Snowbie, they all gasped, "A snowman!" Being friendly sorts, they crowded around and gave him a big elvish welcome. Some asked what he could do, and Snowbie showed him how well he can move around and use his wooden arms. Snowbie was even good at juggling snowballs, and threw a snowball so well that, well, it could knock your hat off without getting any snow on you at all. This made all the elves go ooh and ah. The reindeer were next. There was a big herd, but Snowbie was particularly interested in the ones flying overhead. Down they came 2 by 2. Dancer and Prancer, Comet and Cupid, Donner and Blitzen, Dasher and Vixen. They all gave him a sniff, and they snorted their approval. Snowbie was the most unusual thing they've seen since, well, a certain reindeer with a red nose. "I wish I could fly," Snowbie said. "So do I," said Santa, "but I have to depend on these wonderful gas bags to get gifts to all the kiddies on Christmas." "Is that what you do?" "Yes, it's quite a job, but I love it." "What do I do?" "Well, we haven't figured that out yet. You can't make toys in the workshop or make Christmas cookies in the kitchen. You'll melt. You can't fly, and you don't know how to read and write to help answer the kids' letters to me. How about you just hang out? I'll come and check on you from time to time." And with that, Santa went off to get some things ready for Christmas. Snowbie was sad that he couldn't help Santa like Mrs. Claus, the elves, and the reindeer. He would look into the workshop windows to see all the elves hard at work. He would watch the reindeer fly. He would visit Mrs. Claus, who always brought him some cookies and cold milk. But he wasn't helping, and it made him feel like he had a hole in him. He looked around, but there didn't seem to be a hole, but it felt like it. Year after year, the feeling that he was useless became worse and worse. Santa would worry about Snowbie all the time, absent-mindedly whittling little snowmen. He didn't know what to do. The Snowbies he made actually were quite good, and as time went on, the workshop Christmas tree was sprinkled with them. Before long, the elves were making their own versions of them and put them in stockings. But back to Snowbie himself. One day he became so sad that he decided there had to be some place he could be of help. So he left North Pole, Alaska, and headed out to find a place where he would be useful. He got on the highway and tried to get a ride, but people zooming by just saw him as a pile of snow with a cold smiley face. Soon it became a snow frowny face. Finally, he came to a farm. The farmer and his wife were pretty shocked to see a walking man made out of snow, but friendly enough. They were in need of a scarecrow, but that was in the spring and summer. The area near North Pole, Alaska actually spends part of the year above the freezing point, so that wouldn't work for Snowbie. "Only Santa's magic keeps his property in perpetual winter," the farmer said. "Yep, stays cold there year-round. Great for the kids who like sledding and snowball fights in July." Snowbie realized he could only stay on Santa's property or maybe at the actual North Pole. But there'd be nobody else there besides him, and he liked being around people. Just then he heard jingle bells overhead. Looking up, it was Santa's sleigh. "Hey, Snowbie!" shouted Santa. "Where have you been? We were worried sick." "Santa, I owe you everything, but I'm not doing any good just being a snowman. I figure I'll just roam until it gets hot and I melt." Suddenly, the farmer's kids ran out of the house. Snowbie gave a friendly hello. He liked kids. They reminded him of elves. "Oh my gosh, a snowman," said one. "He talks," said another. "Come with us." And they led him by the hand, or branch, to where there was another snowman. "Look," they shouted, "we made a U. It looks just like the one we got in our stockings last year." And there it was, a snowman just like him, except it had a carrot for a nose and a ski hat with a pom-pom on top. "Ours doesn't talk or move, so you can have the hat and carrot." Snowbie tried them on. How do I look?" The kids shouted all together, "You look awesome!" Santa said, "Snowbie, climb up upon the sleigh. I want to show you something." So Santa and the snowman waved goodbye to the farmer and his family. "See you Christmas Eve, ho ho ho!" Santa decided to take Snowbie on a trip all the way around the world. It wasn't Christmas yet, and there was something that the snowman just had to see. Sure enough, flying over every country that had snow, there were snowmen. Not just one or two, but many thousands of snowmen, snow women, snow kids. Snowbie couldn't believe his eyes. "See," said Santa, "just being you inspires kids and families to get together and make snowmen. It's not always that families do activities that everyone gets involved in, but making snowmen like you is one. You're famous. Making a snowman has become a yearly tradition for people throughout the world. You make happy memories, and there's no more important job than that." "Gosh, Santa, you're right. But what do I do now?" "Snowbie, I promise to take you with me on the sled every Christmas. I'll even teach you to read and write." "Santa, I learned how to read and write a long time ago." "What?" "Yes, Mama Claus taught me. She always brings me books." "Wonderful! You can ride with me on the sleigh and keep track of all the gifts so that they get to the right children. You'll get to see all your snowmen brothers and sisters every year. You could even throw a snowball or two if you want. What do you say?" "I like it!" Snowbie shook with laughter, sending flakes of snow all into the air. "Thanks, Santa. I don't feel like I have a hole in me anymore. I'll do a good job, I promise." "Ho, ho, ho! I know you will, my friend. Merry Christmas." So if everybody gets the right gift at Christmas, you can thank Snowbie. And if you see a sudden flurry of snow on Christmas Eve, it's just Snowbie laughing. And if you get hit by a snowball and there's nobody there, it just might be from, sure enough, the first snowman. Don't worry, it's actually good luck. And that's my Christmas story for you. I hope you liked it, and please accept our wishes for a Merry Christmas and a happy and healthy New Year. For Nurse Amy and First Aid Phil, I'm Joe Alton, MD. Thanks for watching.